I know when I've done presentations and spoke at farmers markets or different presentations to the groups, the public are interested in pollinators. They're interested in where their food's coming from. They're interested in what's in their food.
So we've set an aspirational target around reducing the use of neonicotinoid treated seeds 80% by 2017. It is a newer type of pesticide that is what they call a systemic pesticide. So it actually is taken up by the plants, and so it becomes also part of the plant itself and can have an impact in terms of coming out in the pollen and any animals that might feed on the plant may get a certain level of pesticide.
Mostly it was to be a bit more information, see what was being perceived by other peoples and other groups. You kind of get, when you're hanging around with beekeepers, you get beekeepers' opinions. So it's nice to interact with other farmers and other members of the public and stuff and see what their point of view is. And there seemed to be a very common goal about they were very concerned with pollinators in general, and beekeeping, or honeybees in specific, but basically all pollinators.
Well, we've held a number of sessions and had really good turnout from a range of interests. Good discussion, lots of, I would say, support for the need to do something to address the issue at hand, which is pollinator health. So both we're concerned about both wild pollinators and managed bees.
Ontario, as I'm sure everybody's heard now, has had 58% winter losses last year. We do an annual survey every year within our guild, which represents beekeepers from, say, Napanee to maybe Portland area sort of thing. And I think our losses were 35 or 36% last year. Now, my personal losses this past year were only 15%, which was, you know, back at what they consider this economic threshold. Might have been a fluke. I'm hoping it is good management by the beekeeper, but I would guess it's more apt to be just luck of the draw this year. Maybe I'll take a beating this year, I don't know.
One of the problems for farmers is that they really can't buy corn seed that isn't treated with the neonics. So I think these regulations will force the retailers and the producers of the seed to make untreated seed available as well as the treated seed.
It has to affect it. I know they generally mention that all of these winter losses and deaths of bees, they always go back to varroa mites. But we've had varroa mites for 20 years and we haven't seen the losses that we've seen in the last 6 or 7. So varroa mites may be a contributing factor, but they're definitely not the only cause or whatever. So, so I would think that there is an effect from it.
Neonicotinoid insecticides are used in many ways, including as foliar sprays and drenches, and they're in things like flea collars. But many of these uses are already regulated under the Ontario Pesticides Act. But because in this case, when you're looking at seeds, it actually is not caught under the current regulations. So the specific regulation that we're proposing at the moment is something to manage the use of the treated seed and treated seed for corn and soybean.
Well, as a producer of both corn and soybeans, and we do run 1,000 acres in total on our farm, it's going to be more regulation to deal with, and I'm certainly willing as a producer to do my part to reduce the environment, any type of issue or environmental load that anything I do on my farm causes. However, to be mandated into a box where thou shalt be down to 80% overall seems a little tight and not very scientifically based, and I think that discussion could have been done a little bit better than it has progressed to this point.
I don't agree with the part of them treating everything just in case some of them might need a like I don't agree with treating all the corn and all the, or most of the soybeans, just so that there is a possibility that this pest may crop up in my field. You know, the farmer should have the option not to plant that, but he has to also have the tools to determine what his infestation or whatever is going to be, and whether or not that's done in a timely manner. They talked about getting test kits out and stuff like that, but you have to have the test, you have to have the results, and you have to be able to apply it before the crop's destroyed, right? So you can't have the results in September so late for your crop to come back and say, oh, if you'd have treated with this, you wouldn't have lost all your soybeans. So, yeah, so.
I think my views were received fairly well. There was certainly some good discussion at our table because I was at a table with beekeepers. I didn't go and sit with the friendlies. I said, no, I'm here to learn. And you know, we had some good discussions with some real beekeepers. Not, you know, I consider myself a real farmer because of my size, and I want to discuss it with real beekeepers that, you know, it's their livelihood. It's not, well, I'm going to have my job on the side and I keep a few bees and everybody's happy. No, they have to live off it, so, you know, they got to hear my point of view. I need to hear their point of view.
Same on this.
Currently, where we're at, for corn seed, almost 100% of corn seed is treated. For soybean seed, it's currently at about 60% of soybean seed is treated. So we're not banning it, as has been done in the European Union, but we're trying to find a method for targeting it to those areas where there's clearly a pest infestation or evidence that there's going to be a problem for the farmer, and that seed, the treated seed, should be made available once those conditions are met.
I think the biggest thing is to try to alleviate the confusion or the mumble jumble of, you know, this doesn't have any chemicals in it, it doesn't have hormones in it or whatever. Get it to a level where the person, if I want to buy honey, is it pure honey? Is it, you know, I've been asked before, what do you add to your honey? I said, nothing, the bees make it, like, you know. So it's just, I think just to avoid the confusion and misinformation, maybe is a better word than confusion, but just to kind of get people so that if they want to buy the cheapest honey or the cheapest apples, you know, another comment was, I don't want to buy apples that are sprayed. Well, if anybody's ever, when I was a kid, we used to have thousands of apple trees, but they never were sprayed, but they also had warts, worms, and bugs on them, right? It's no big deal. I was a kid, we ate them anyways, right? You ate till you got to the worm or the blister on it, and you spit it out, went and got another apple. So, you know, I find it's a bit of a contradiction in some respects that way, that, you know, I don't want my food to be sprayed, but if it's not the perfect apple on the shelf, I'm not buying it. Like, you couldn't give it to me. So it's, I think the public is very interested in finding what's going on, and they're willing to take some time to find out the information.
It's true that if we lose pollinators, we lose a good portion of our agriculture productivity, and many of the natural plants that we see as well, which could have an impact on other species that rely on wild plants. So it does have a very significant impact, and which is why we want to protect pollinators. Whether or not we would disappear in 5 years, I'm not sure how that calculation was arrived at, but it is quite serious to see a decline in pollinators. They are fundamental to the system.